was out everywhere.
And had I not gone in, when was that, yesterday?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have called me.
Oh,
Glad I
I'm
went.
sure they wouldn't have. Thank you.
Test 1 2. Mic test 1 2. Let me know how it sounds.
Since they met Wednesday night, it'd be nice to hear from him. Yep, he was here.
Made it worse.
Standing there.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
I'll go get him.
Whoever you want to give them to.
Some more composed of you guys just here in the northeast part. Northeast corner.
Hey everyone, I would just like to say something as you guys take your seats. I'm not sure how many of you guys were here for the town hall last time, but we had a lot of people in here. We actually had probably just as many people on Zoom as we did in here. And we were kind of short on mics last time. So if you ever would like to speak, please speak into the mic for the people at home. Otherwise, they're a little lost. It just sounds like silence. People will say a response and they don't know what they said. And as for being heard, you'll want to hold the mic kind of like this, more like a telescope. Not down here, not too far away. As you can see, it starts to fade out. It doesn't take much for it to go quiet, just like a telescope. Thank you.
Thank you for those housekeeping notes. If everyone could find their seats, we'll go ahead and get started momentarily. Thank you. Okay, the time is now 9:06. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the Quapaw Nation Business Committee regular meeting, Saturday, December 17th, 2022. I'd like to welcome everybody in attendance, physically as well as on Zoom, virtually. And if we could I have Mr. Mercer lead us in invocation, please?
Father, we come before you today to conduct the Quapaw Nation. We'd like you to look out on everyone here, everyone on Zoom, all throughout. There are a lot of people that have the flu, illness. Please give them good healing. Let this meeting run according to what is best for our nation. In Jesus' name we ask.
Amen. Thank you, Larry. At this time, roll call and declaration of quorum.
Member Newton,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Super present, Chairman Byrd,
Present.
Vice Chair Bowden,
Present.
Member Mercer,
Present.
Member Shawnee.
Present.
Quorum is declared.
Have a quorum. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Next up, reading, correction, and approval of minutes. Supplied in our packets.
I'll move to accept.
We have a motion to accept.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries and the minutes are approved. Next up, reading, correction, and approval of electronic polls. If someone could recite those for us, please.
Sure, I'll go ahead and take the first one. The first is a purchase request, Family Services, for a sport utility vehicle for client transport. The necessity of that was driven by expanded client count, and given the unpredictable nature the Family Services needs, a second vehicle was necessary. So additional details were provided. Procurement went through the full process to get multiple bids and ultimately was selected. This particular phone pole was approved.
Thank you. Anybody have the next one?
The next one is an employee emergency donation. That one was also approved.
Okay, thank you.
The next one is a purchase request for the fire and EMS. They were to replace existing vehicles due to high mileage and increased maintenance cost. and that was approved. The next one was a purchase request from the Marshals for another Suburban to be used for daily duties, and it was recently awarded through the 2022 COPS grant. That was approved. And there was also an employee house fire assistance donation. That was approved.
The next poll, 9093, purchase request for the Marshals Silverado 1500. That was approved. There was a total of two Silverado 1500s for the Marshal Service detectives to be used on daily duties. The next one is ag lease. That was approved. And there was another ag lease approval. And that's Resolution 9278, 9279 are the two ag lease approvals. And then poll 9368, a donation for the Takedown Club. That was also approved.
Okay, thank you. Take a motion to adopt.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the electronic polls are approved. Next up, approval of the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion there? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the treasurer's report is approved. Next up, directors and committees reports submitted in our packets.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes and the directors and subcommittee reports submitted are approved. Dropping down to the chairman's report for today, just an update on BEAR. New members of Congress will be sworn in next month in January. At this time, committee and subcommittee appointments are being discussed and should be finalized by the end of January, first part of February. The BEAR settlement bill will need to be reintroduced, which means it will receive a new number and will no longer be HR 4715 for those that are following this. This new bill will be introduced in both the House and the Senate, where we have support of our congressional delegation for sponsorship. The Business Committee plans to take a trip to Washington, D.C. once the committee and subcommittee appointments are solidified to advocate for the bill. Based on the most current information given to the Business Committee, there are new players, if you will, in this congressional term, which increases our support for passage, which increases our chances of bringing the issue to a close. The Business Committee will continue to update our citizens as we receive information on the BEAR settlement bill. So during the first week of December, I traveled with a delegation of chiefs to Washington, D.C. for the White House Tribal Nations Summit. This summit was started in the Obama administration and was suspended during the Trump administration, and then held virtually in the Biden administration again. So this event marked the first time in 6 years that a summit like this was held in person, and approximately 300 tribal nations were represented. The White House Summit provides an opportunity to engage directly with senior administration officials to foster a relationship built on respect for tribal sovereignty and self-governance, honoring the federal trust responsibility and treaty responsibilities, protecting tribal homelands, and conducting regular, meaningful, and robust consultation. Before the summit started, I traveled to the Department of Justice to meet with officials from the Office of Tribal Justice and the Environmental and Natural Resources Division. Topics of discussion included environmental justice and water rights adjudication. I took this opportunity to advocate for our reservation water rights, which are still preserved and will be of utmost importance as we continue to experience global climate change and a shortage of water. It will be beneficial for Quapaw Nation to quantify those rights, and this conversation was the first step in doing so. I also took the opportunity to briefly explain the status of the Bear settlement and that because it had stalled in Congress this session, it was still categorized as a failure of the federal government to uphold its federal trust responsibility to Quapaw Nation. Only when the funds have been appropriated and distributed to us it will be complete, but until that time, we will continue to pressure the federal government to live up to its word. I anticipate further meetings with DOJ officials to meet and discuss these important topics further in the days to come. The summit kicked off with a welcome from Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland, who introduced President Biden. His remarks included a presidential memorandum establishing uniform standards to be implemented across all federal agencies regarding how tribal consultations are conducted. This will also require annual training for federal employees who work with tribal nations or on policies with tribal implications. In alignment with this presidential memorandum, 9 agencies will implement or update tribal consultation policies. These include the Department of Interior, Department of Justice, Department of Transportation, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of the Treasury, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. Additional remarks reaffirm this administration's commitment to strengthen and partner with tribal nations to uphold trust and treaty obligations, to invest in infrastructure across Indian country, improving health care for tribal citizens, restoring and protecting tribal homelands, and strengthening tribal economies. Education and native language revitalization, mental health, climate and clean energy, and access to capital and economic development were all topics of discussion throughout the 2-day summit. In addition to the American Recovery Plan, what we know as ARPA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Inflation Reduction Act were also topics of discussion. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law provides more than $13 billion in direct funding to support tribal communities and makes eligible to apply for and request billions more. This includes initiatives in areas such as internet, roads, bridges, public transit, clean water, and sanitation improvements. The BIL makes the largest single investment in tribal infrastructure in U.S. history. The Inflation Reduction Act is intended to build a clean energy economy and combat climate change by providing funding for tribes to plan for and adapt to climate change, mitigate drought, and shift to clean energy production. The IRA provides more than $720 million in direct climate resilience and energy funding to support tribal nations. Key takeaways from this summit are Quapaw Nation must be more strategic in every facet, and we must extend beyond dependency on gaming dollars to a more independent position. Quapaw Nation must be more aggressive and methodical when it comes to grant applications, and Quapaw Nation must be even more forward-thinking in its approach to provide a better future for generations to come. The time is now. Our time is now. Thank you. Eric.
Good morning, everyone. The general fund for the month of November received $1.6 million, bringing the total for the fiscal year to $3.2 million. Actual expenses in November were $2 million, bringing our total for the year to $4.1 million. Tribal member health benefits for November was $343,000, bringing our total for the fiscal year to $710,000. Social services benefits in November were $121,000, bringing our total for the year to $343,000. And then education expenses in November were $46,000, bringing our total for the year to $103,000. Little ARPA update. We have received 3,676 applications. We have completed 3,662 of those applications. A total of 4,995 checks have been processed and mailed for a total of $6.8 million. Still have about 2 weeks of the application period remaining, and they are at this point just trickling in daily. Children's Christmas checks, that application period started December 1st. We've received 466 applications. We've processed 453 of those applications for a total of 789 checks processed and mailed for a total amount of $39,450. Does anybody have any questions?
Just to reiterate, the deadline for the children's checks are...
December 31st.
Thank you. All right, good report. Thank you, Eric. Any subcommittee reports? I know we have Constitution Committee sitting in the audience. And if there are any other subcommittee reports, please.
Good morning.
Morning, Roman.
Just a quick update for the Constitution Committee. Vance Gilmore has joined us regularly. Thank you for allowing our committee to grow. He's been an asset already. We are meeting weekly, except following a holiday through these seasons, just to let you know how frequently we're gathering right now. Currently, we're exploring business committee roles, the business committee role as a whole right now, and trying to find out some different bits of information on how we currently operate so that we can move forward with additional roles. For example, we can't find anywhere where the business committee is allowed to conduct business outside of this meeting, right? So whenever there's a general vote by the business committee, this includes phone polls or anything else, we don't know where that started. I mean, I could identify where it started, but we can't identify where the authority came from that allows the business committee to conduct business away from us, right? So we're exploring that right now. So we'll be reaching out to the business committee also to kind of like pull up some information for us if you guys could gather where that started and why. And also, we know it's necessary, but what delineates a phone poll from regular business inside of this room, inside of this body, right? Is there some sort of matrix that you guys use, or is it just kind of whimsical? This feels like it should be a phone poll, and this feels like it should be a resolution. So those are going to be some of the things that we're going to be reaching out for information on also. I want to remind everybody about the upcoming special meeting of the General Council on January 28th and possibly the 29th. It's going to be at Downstream in the Pavilion. And just want to remind you that what this is a continuance of the October 20th meeting. Okay, so we're not creating a new agenda. No new business could be brought up. We're only continuing the agenda that was laid out for the meeting on the 20th of October. A portion of that agenda was tabled so that we could allow the business committee to get some legal feedback about, I forget what number it was, But we're supposed to receive some feedback from legal about possible implications if something were to pass, if one of our tenants were to pass, which would remove the business committee from all commissions, boards, et cetera. Is there an update on that? Do we have any feedback?
Yeah, so the latest was Witten Burridge, General Counsel, General Legal Counsel, has been working on that. We've seen a draft of one component of it, but they've still got more homework to do because they're trying to go through an exhaustive list of all of those authorities and commissions and evaluate the impact of each of those.
Okay, do we have
Nothing final has been provided, Roman, but I keep pushing on the urgency of that because we don't want to receive that so close to the actual January 28th meeting date.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a drop dead deadline?
Yeah, let me see if I can get them to finalize that by the end of the year, if not the first week of January.
Okay, great, thank you. And that's it for right now. As far as that goes, I do see that we have, is this going to be discussed later? Is that why this
I
is
didn't know
being
if you were
handed
going to bring it up or if I wasn't, but that's in response to the subcommittee report that you guys presented and the discussion from last month. So far, it has been validated by J.R. Matthews and Lloyd Buffalo that it still exists. The BIA is looking for their record, but they are short-staffed. That's just to get your eyes on it. The meeting minutes are all present online. It was online. It's just very difficult to find. Just because it was mentioned saying that it was null and void, it never came back as null and void, is what I'm being told. I wasn't around in 91, but that's what I'm being told.
Okay. Just want to present to the business committee that something we may want to consider with this is, one, not only do the minutes say that it was null and void, but this particular document changes the governing resolution, in which case this particular document was presented at a meeting and there was no proper notice given prior to that meeting that this was going to be changing our governing resolution. So I don't know what to do with this. I'm just giving you the information that that's what happened. So in considering if this is a valid document or not, it's literally in the minutes of when this particular one was passed, that it was presented at the meeting, voted on at the meeting, no proper notice was given, and just giving you that information. The other thing was this would also need to be reconciled with what is on file with with HUD, because we do have a conflict of interest policy that is in fact in place, and this committee has verified that that is the conflict of interest policy. And then in case you need a reference, that is Resolution 031905C. So that would need to be reconciled with this somehow. So there's a lot of dilemmas, and hopefully the general counsel can see a lot of the dilemmas that the Constitution Committee, or that our tribe for that matter, our tribe is going to continue to have to forge our way through, because we have so many conflicting documents, right? And we need to figure out which one is the prevailing document. Is it the one that was written first, or is it the one that was actually passed and on file with our federal agencies that we conduct business with?
It was presented in 1990. It was passed in 91. Somebody questioned whether it was null and void. They were seeking a second legal opinion. And to my knowledge, what I'm being told, that that's not true. It is valid, and it does exist today. That's just the research that I have found out as far as that goes.
Okay, can we get a formal business committee opinion on this? Just so that we know, so we as the people know, are we holding you accountable to this 01 document? Are we holding you accountable to the 05 document?
From what I can recall in reading that 05 document, I don't see too much of a discrepancy. I will reread it, but this one is considered an Ethics and Government Act. Mm-hmm. The other one was for HUD, and it is about, what would you say, conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
So
business ethics.
I
And
don't
conflict
know
of
if
interest.
it is I will review that and we can get back to you as a whole on that. And we can even hand it over to legal too. But this was in response to your report that was submitted with people not having their eyes on it. And from the meeting minutes and the timeline that has been presented, it is appearing to be valid. So this is just part of getting the word out there so everybody can read it. But yes, we can absolutely follow back up with you.
Yeah, please, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, there's just so much about this document. For example, a full day's pay, a full day's wage for a full day's pay. There was no full day's wage, right? So there's already just like in that plain language, it doesn't make sense for the business committee in 2001 or 1991 to do a full day's work for a full day's pay, right?
But it also works for employees as well as elected officials.
Right. In regard to, that's not our business. All right. I just wanted to put that out there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roman, one last thing. I did get a confirmation from Witten Burridge. We'll have their memo by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roman. Do we have Gracie, Linda? I don't see her. No, you're up.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone. The election committee met. As you know, there is a vacancy, and we will be calling for a special election. When we met on the 14th of December, we also had a response from an attorney. Once again, just to try to clarify some of the language, Roman, that we're just kind of up in the air about. So if everyone can just please bear with us. We have sent some information to an attorney. We've gotten a response, but without really going a lot further into detail, we would like to once again send back and get another response from the attorney just to kind of put things in place so we have a better understanding. So if you guys could just please be patient with us there and let us kind of work through that to, once again, like you say, Roman, kind of figure out where we're at. So I would certainly appreciate that. We have set the timeline for the annual election. Now, the annual election will be July 22nd. However, we're going to meet again on Monday and work towards setting the timeline for the special election due to the vacancy and the unexpired term of Zach Turley. So again, if everybody can kind of be patient with us, we're trying to do the best we can, looking at dates so that it creates the least amount of conflict and margin of error with any type of cross paths of ballots, especially when it comes to our absentee ballots. Again, we'll do like we have done recently in the past. We will color code, again, to the best of our ability to decrease any risk for any error. We do have a vacancy as well on our election committee. We have some names, and there's been a person that has expressed an interest. And so once again, that will be on our agenda for Monday night. So Wednesday night, the 14th, we had over a half a page of topics on the agenda, and after about 2 hours, we kind of we were worn down and felt it was best to just adjourn at that point and reconvene on Monday and pick up and start again. So if there's any questions, that kind of gives you just an update of where we're at. But if there's any questions, I'm welcome to try to answer the best that I can.
Linda, I did have a question. I think I'm following the storyline, but what is the nature of the legal counsel that was sought? I'm missing the context, I think.
It had to do with the recall language of the petition. Joseph, you are aware that there's a petition that will be for the recall of your position. I'm not going to stand up here and hide it or try to deny it or anything like that. But once again, we're determining, as the election committee, we determine the validity of that petition, and then enrollment has their part when they've determine the validity of signatures. Everybody knows with a petition you have to have a sponsor, promoters, blah, blah, blah. And so that's where we're just trying to get a head start, because there is such, in the event that presents to us, we want to have our, for a matter of words, just have our ducks in a row, because there is a short time frame turnaround on that. Once that once that petition comes to us as a whole, then those signatures has to be verified, and then the validity. So that's kind of where that is. So once again, we have sent some documentation to an attorney. He has responded. He had some questions, or actually we sent some information to the attorney. He sent some questions back to us. We responded and answered those questions. He provided back some information, but once again, now we would like to present back to him some information. So we're kind of in this little bit of back and forth until we kind of get some solid foundation of which direction. So hopefully that answers your question, Weena. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay.
Good report. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other subcommittees? Okay. Virtually, any other subcommittees? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and drop down to the director's reports. First up, our Tribal Historic Preservation Office, Mr. Everett Bandy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Everett Bandy. I'm the director with the Historic Preservation Office, and we primarily work on compliance with Historic Preservation Act for federal projects. So last month we reviewed 385 federal projects in the Quapaw Nation's ancestral area of interest, and we had several ongoing agreement documents. The most significant one was for a project, USACE 22059. We were able to complete review of the document and consultation of the document and submit it to the business committee, I believe, in late October. And it was returned back to us in early November, and we were able to give it to the Army Corps. So that particular one was avoiding an archaeological site for a large steel mill expansion that requires a federal permit, and they are working to avoid the site, and we're going to have an archaeologist monitor as they build, just in case there's anything that we didn't catch when they did the survey. We're also working on planning for the Bridge the Gap Conference, which is a large conference in the historic preservation field between the Forest Service and tribes, mostly in Oklahoma. This year, the Quapaw Nation will have the opportunity to host the conference. The Forest Service pays for the conference every year, but a different tribe gets to host it. And we're going to be able to host it this year, and about 200 to 300 people in our field come and attend and talk about ongoing issues and training. And we're going to be talking about demystifying consultation, which Chairman described was a hot topic this year with President Biden. Every agency and act that involves Native Americans is supposed to stipulate consultation with tribes so they can discuss it with us. And they all work a little bit different. And the federal government and tribal nations sometimes have confusion on that process. And so this year, we're going to be deep diving into a bunch of different laws and the consultation that must occur. And we plan to have a really good conference there. I was also able to attend last month the Southeastern Archaeological Conference. I was invited to go down there and speak on a panel discussion that involved some state historic preservation officers and tribal historic preservation officers. I don't usually attend that conference. It's a Southeastern conference, and sometimes it's not very close to us. But this year it was in Little Rock. While we were there, I also got to assist with a Public Archaeology Day booth. And so the State Historic Preservation Office and our Tribal Historic Preservation Office had a joint booth. And we had over 214 people visit our booth. It was a Public Archaeology Day, and people learned about the importance of not disturbing an archaeological site, what to do if you run into an archaeological site, what to do if you find someone looting, things like that, which is a very common problem in Arkansas. But we had over 214 people from the public come by, and we had activities for children. We had little cardboard bags and pictures of Quapaw hides and rock art, and the children got to draw on the bags while we talked to the parents about what our offices do. So that was a successful event, and we were glad to be able to go. While we were there, I also performed a site visit to Plum Bayou Mounds, which is a site that was recently renamed. It used to be named Toltec. But there's been a flooding problem there that's been ongoing for over a decade that we've been working on, and we're making some traction. And since I was in the area, I went ahead and visited the site and visited with the station archaeologist there. And we also assisted with the Quapaw Fall Gathering. My department did a bit at the request of the Cultural Committee. I ran the hand game. And we've been working on our annual grant report, which we are mostly done with and expect to submit early next week. And that's everything we've been working on. Thank you.
Everett, that's exciting news on the Bridge the Gap conference. I know it's something, you've been kind of took on as a pet project for the last couple of years, and with COVID kind of affecting that, but it's good to see it's coming to fruition. And I want to thank you for expediting the letter that was sent on Quapaw Nation's behalf. Thank you for doing that. And then also for running the hand game last month.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Why did they change the name of
Toltec, it's kind of a nuanced thing. So they use a common thing back in the day. Before we had modern laws, archaeologists would go out and dig up archaeological sites, and they would do these horrible things like measure Native American skulls and all these crazy things. And they had these wild theories that somebody else built all of these places, and that all these large mounds couldn't possibly have been built by Native Americans. And so they had a lot of alternative theories. They thought that they were built by giants. They thought they were built by aliens, anyone but Indians, really. And so the people who owned Plum Bayou, what's now called Plum Bayou, was a really large, they call it, anthropologists call it a calendrical site, kind of like Stonehenge in Europe, where they can see where the sun comes up in different places. It was this really large site like that in Arkansas, and it was this really early group that made it, and they just presumed that it was the Toltecs of Mexico, the people who owned that site. We're like, oh, it must have been the Toltecs from Mexico because they built those big stone pyramids in Mexico. And it wasn't, of course, but the name just stuck for a long time. And then people wanted to change it for a long time, and it never really happened. And then there was a recent kind of effort that involved the Quapaw, the Caddo, the Osage, and other constituents in Arkansas. And they named it Plum Bayou because the area there is named Plum Bayou. It's a bayou, a slow-moving creek with there's a lot of plums around there. So they just call that area Plum Bayou, and they just named the mounds after the geographic area so that it would be less, I don't know if that makes sense, like ethnically incorrect. So I don't know how to say that, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been Toltec forever.
It has been Toltec forever and ever, like I think since the 40s or something. But okay.
2.5 years ago, we had a resolution written that named our sacred sites, and I think Toltec was listed. Is that resolution be updated where it reflects that name change?
It doesn't require one. We have separate resolutions that list a series of sacred sites, and normally that was done for some reason, like, for example, if we were trying to consult with somebody or advocate for a site, like say the state, we're trying to get the state to support like making an archaeological site into a park or something. We may declare it a sacred site to show them how much we think about it. And the name is still recognized on file that it used to be called that, so we don't have to go through it. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Everett. Good report. Next up, food sovereignty, Ms. Michelle Bowden.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just let you all know that we finally finalized the location for our food sovereignty department. It is over there on Whitebird Road, just east of the Title VI building. You'll see us out there working here really quick because we're ready to get out there and get started now that we've finalized everything. Right now, we're working on some planning. We're going to have to lay some water lines because I'm really going to work on an efficient drip irrigation system out there. We're looking at the layout. I've got some bids in for a building that we're going to house a lot of our equipment in. We're also going to advance to a wash and pack house to where we can effectively clean our vegetables to be able to put into production in other places. It's more about food safety for me in general. If you see on the graphics up here is kind of what we're looking at a layout so far. Let's see, the top of it's gonna be north. So west in that top corner is where there's an already existing house that we are going to probably run a little, I think we're gonna do a security system out there to make sure that we can protect all of our stuff. We also need to make sure that we have access to internet. And if you go out to the east, there's a green line there that we're actually gonna be laying a road to go out to the building that's gonna house our equipment and wash and pack house. We're gonna have lots of row crops kind of in the area that looks kind of like hay on there, but those are actually row crops. That we're gonna do a little bit of everything, you know, squashes, beans, corn, really pretty much everything. I promise you, if I can think of it, I'm gonna try to get it out there. And then on front of that, we're actually gonna do our berry and fruit trees. So we're gonna have a nice little orchard set up out there. We also are looking at putting in a pavilion somewhere that people can kind of gather. We can have classes out there, things like that. That'll actually be funded through the Environmental Department through Clean Water Act. So it's a matter of just finding our placement for all of that. So right now I'm basically working on purchase approvals for a lot of stuff. We purchased our materials to make trellises. So we're actually gonna be out there building our trellises in the next few weeks. So if you guys see us out there, give us a honk. And let's see, we're gonna start our tutorials back up here real quick, tutorials and classes. So if there's anything anybody suggests or would like to learn about that's based around food sovereignty, whether it be, you know, plants, growing plants, reserve, please let us know. We're up to all kinds of ideas. I know next week we're gonna start a tutorial for making bison stew. So that's gonna be our first one on the agenda. And then throughout the whole season, we're gonna try to do at least one a month. So if there's any suggestions, please reach out to me. You can either email me at Quapaw Farmers Market at, Farmers Market at QuapawNation.com, or you can just call the market itself and ask for Michelle. I'll be more than happy to help you all out with anything. Any questions?
Whose recipe are you using for the bison stew?
I actually am in works with Randy Ray over at Downstream, so we're working with him.
Great, great.
Yeah. You can, yeah, that's gonna be the main location. The other location is the Ray property, which is right across the street from it. Like I said, that'll be the same thing. Top is gonna be north. On the west side is where they're looking at doing the housing. Eventually, once the housing's put in, we will add a community garden over there for the residents. On the east side, it's really quite undermined. So what we're planning on doing with that is clearing out the trees on the south side of it, clearing some of them, not all of them, because we actually have some good trees out there. I've got some walnuts and things like that. But we're gonna clear it out a little bit so we can put our apiary back there. We're gonna try to expand our hives. Right now we have 9. I'm really looking at ending with 20 by the end of this year. The sky's the limit. Really, however much I can get out there, I'm gonna try over the next few years. It's not gonna be an immediate, but we'll get there. And up north of that is gonna be the wildflower habitat to feed the bees. And in that top right corner, we're gonna start doing a pumpkin patch to where we can have pumpkins that everybody can come and take the kids or yourselves, whoever wants to, just come out and get some pumpkins.
I would just, I see an opportunity here, and I just want to go ahead and speak on it really quick. Michelle has her associates in natural resource and ecology management, and she has a Bachelor of Science in agriculture. This is her passion, and I think she does a great job. Just for the record, I have never participated in her job position or her pay. If anything is ever brought up, I always recuse myself. So I wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you all for your time. And like I said, I hope to see everybody have a chance to come out and see what we're doing. I do plan on also doing updated videos throughout the course of our planning and establishment of this. So I will put those up on our Facebook page. And hopefully at the next meeting I come and talk to you, I can have a little video showing what we've done so far.
I have a question.
Okay.
And I know it's a question on a few people's minds. I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Is there any plans for marijuana cultivation?
We have not discussed it. As far as I know in the past it's been brought up. It's also been brought up in the environmental course of things, not necessarily marijuana, but hemp, because we know that hemp will pull, heavy metals out of the ground. But nothing has been discussed directly like that, no. If you're wanting to, we can talk about it.
I'm not wanting to per se, but I know there's several people whenever we talk about when you say we're going to plant anything and everything, it's good to, clarify that.
At the moment, it's going to be crops for food, but if we do want to expand eventually, we can discuss it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, our CHR, Mr. Dwayne Chuckluck. Okay. Next up, we have our IT Director, Michael Richardson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm going to start this out by saying, for security reasons, you will never hear me say what kind of equipment we have, what brand, what vendor, what software, because we have to protect you guys out here. So that's why you'll never hear me talk about. Now, I'll be general about everything, but I just wanted to clarify that for you guys. Now, I know we recently did the COVID application online, and I've got a lot of great feedback about that. That's what my department's pushing towards for you guys, for the tribal members. We want to develop a member portal so you guys can come and get your services, so you can see your social service balance in real time. That's what we want to do for you guys out here, and that's what we've been working towards. Also, we've been working on some security cameras. Currently, right now, I will tell you our system kind of works like a DVR system. The camera records to a device. I want to move that to the cloud. And when I say cloud, it's just a fancy way of saying it's stored somewhere else. So that probably won't start until January. I'll have to come to these guys up here to get approval for that. We've been working on a lot of stuff. We got a new phone system we're getting ready to put in. We've had some network issues with that server that we finally got figured out. It took us about 2 months to figure out one little problem. So, a lot of times with IT, people think we can just snap our fingers and we're like wizards and stuff works. But it's not like that. It's kind of like speaking a foreign language. We really have to work towards solving the issues. So that's about, I forgot one thing. Usually IT lives in the darkness. You guys don't need us until something's broken. But we have been nominated for an award. It's pretty prestigious. It's called the Changemaker Award. And it's because of a project we done here at Quapaw Nation, which is a pretty big deal. So Tyler and I are going to travel to Dallas in April to see if we win this award. It's actually, a pretty big deal for us. And it has to do with what we're working towards on your member portal. So that's pretty much all I got.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, sir.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
And to the rest of your department, thank you.
Yeah, I got a great department. I haven't had any turnover for probably, I don't know, Mikhail and Tyler's been with me for probably 4 years. So I mean, my department stays together. We're pretty tight.
And, the nation invested or reinvested a lot of those ARPA funds directly into our technology endeavors. I know I didn't do it any service by talking about it at our town hall, but the proof is there. It's coming, and with this portal, it's evident. So thank you.
Thank you.
Getting on the website,
Yes.
is the old stuff now supposed to be gone away where you had to have your code or whatever to get into it?
So, unfortunately, you will still have to have a username and password because I have to identify you as a tribal member. We can't really get away from, you just jumping on and filling out forms. When it comes to certain, now let me preface this, when it comes to certain services, okay, we have to make sure you are you online.
How do you change your stuff? A different email and a different phone number and a different address and.
That part we're still working on, okay? We still got to develop all that. Yeah, we still got to develop authentication, hey, I need to change my password, hey, stuff like that. We still have to develop that. So, yes, Linda.
Hey, Mikey. Quick question. When you're talking about implementing the new phone service, was there any input as far as like tribal employees and directors on the type of service and the needs as far as like telephone equipment, or was this a decision that was just made through IT and the upper?
I will tell you, I can tell you one part of our phone system. It's a great question, and I know what you're getting at. So we went with two combinations. You have a desk phone and you have a soft phone. Now, let me explain what a soft phone. A soft phone will allow you to run your office phone on your cell phone. So your cell phone essentially becomes your office phone. So if somebody calls your desk, it will also ring your cell phone if you want it to. So that way, I know for you guys, you have like cell phones that you guys carry. So we really thought about that aspect for you guys.
So will this phone system have the ability, if somebody calls in versus it doesn't, okay, rather than having it ring to us, have the ability to leave a voice message? Because it is my understanding that currently now, the phone system that we have, if somebody calls family services after hours and they want my extension, that is not even a choice, and then it's just missed calls, I guess is what I'm coming down to.
Yes, because I'll explain why we're in that box with our current phone system. It's 15 years old, okay? The new phone system, we can have what we call an IVR, which is basically an audit attendant. Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Linda Davis, and I don't know her extension, but I know it's Linda, right? So I can put LIN, right? And it gives me, we have that ability with the new system. Does that make sense?
Yes, because, and then also, if, I know the way it is right now, a voice message comes in, if I'm out of the office, they'll, and this is during operating hours, normal operating hours, a message will go to my phone, and then it will come up, it will pop up on my email, but there's that delay from hitting desktop to hitting cell phone, as far as getting messages and emails, just in
Yes.
general.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
So we can't control the speed that it bounces to other devices. Does that because we can't control the cell phone service that you use. We can only control in-house. Once it leaves, because it has to leave us, right? Because on your cell phone you have Outlook. So it has to use your cell data to get that information.
Okay.
Now, I can't control how fast your phone talks to the cell tower, but I can give you a window into the system, basically.
All right, thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
anticipate people being able to get on their internet that can't get on it now?
So are you talking about,
Old stuff and new stuff.
oh, this phone system?
No, I'm not
Oh,
talking about internet, about getting on the website and stuff.
now, the website, I can't control what users have at home. You know, I can't control what internet service they have.
I'm talking about changing your address and your password,
Okay.
email address and all that.
Yes. Yeah. So that will probably take a couple of months. I mean, when it comes to writing code, that means making the program. There's several steps it has to go through. You write it, you test it, you find bugs, you go back to the board, write again, find more bugs. Eventually you get to a working product. It's really hard to say that in 4 months it'll be ready because once we test it, we don't know what kind of bugs we have, right? So it's got to go back to testing. So it's really hard to give you that number. Like in 2 months, you'll be able to change your password and stuff. It's really hard, really. I mean, it's an educated guess. I can tell you, I'm shooting for first quarter. So that's about the best answer I can give. I'm shooting for first quarter to get this rolled out. We'll bring you one, Barbara. We have one over there.
So a couple months?
Couple months. Hey, now I hope, but we all know how writing software goes.
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay. Dropping down to new business, we have a couple resolutions up.
First resolution is Resolution 121722-A. It is a resolution retaining Justin Valentine as the Quapaw Nation prosecutor for a period of 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes, and the resolution 121722A, resolution retaining Justin Valentine as Quapaw Nation prosecutor, is hereby approved. Dropping down to the second resolution.
Second resolution is number 121722-B, a resolution authorizing the approval of an electric easement within the exterior boundaries of the former Garner property to provide electric to an adjacent property to be used for a dollar store, and to authorize the execution of an easement agreement on behalf of the Quapaw Nation. In this agreement, they have agreed to provide services anywhere on the property at no cost in the future to us for services.
Thank you.
I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes, and resolution 121722B, resolution authorizing the approval of an electric easement within the exterior boundaries of the former Garner property, is hereby approved. Next up on the agenda, we have purchases. Would somebody like to take that?
I'll take the first one. The first is the purchase of a 2022 Ford Explorer for the community health representative to be used for patient transport and other daily duties. So this one went out for bidding process. And it's on behalf of the fire and EMS department.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just a point of clarification, the funding source, CHR, we have ARPA. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the purchase request is approved.
The next one is a Lexus Nexus Plus upgrade for the Quapaw Nation Tribal Court. Right now, there's a basic package that is utilized, and the court needs to upgrade their version of the software. So the court was awarded a grant for probation and parole, and this upgrade is specifically listed in the grant application in anticipation of increased amount of court cases. So they'll get expanded services and features to be able to compare codes and state laws, access briefs, pleadings, and motions.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the request is approved.
The next purchase request is for 2 Chevrolet Tahoes for the Marshal Service. They are going to be using the 2022 COPS grant. It is being requested to replace existing high mileage vehicles that currently exist in our inventory. I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the request is approved. Anybody care to take that last one?
The last one is for the Law Marshal Police Package Tahoes. It's 7 units, and to replace existing high mileage vehicles that are becoming very expensive to maintain, and also for some new marshals that have been hired. This also falls under the 2022 COPS grant. Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the request is approved. Thank you. Dropping down to donations, we have the Quapaw High School After Prom. This is an annual event, provides organized activities to students after their junior and senior prom. The goal is to provide a safe environment free of alcohol and drugs for the students. Fun, food, interactive games, and prizes are given out. And the amount requested is $1,000. And the
I make the
requester,
motion to approve.
and the requester is Jamie Chuckluck. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes and the request is approved. So next up, we have open forum. And at this time, I want to recognize those tribal members who have walked on. For this month, we have Jeffrey Lee Greenback and Charles Dardeen. And if anybody else has any names that I omitted, I'll take those names now. If not, please bear with me in a moment of silence. Gonna gay. So, as we are in open forum, before I turn over the floor, I'd just like to take this opportunity to address a few rumors circulating. The first one being that Title VI is closing. That is absolutely not true. Elimination of elder housing. That is also absolutely not true. And you know, these rumors that are circulating in our community are not only meritless and unfounded, but they actually cause a lot of harm to our community and to one of the most vulnerable groups of people within our tribe, which is our elders. Quapaw Nation has the best Title VI programs around, and Rhonda and her staff do a tremendous job of providing meals, not just to our tribal citizens, but to other tribal folks as well in this area. Same goes for our elder housing. Our housing department does their best to ensure the housing needs of our elders are met, and we have no plans of eliminating elder housing or Title VI, ever. Another one involves the question, where is the money? I guess as a general statement, all of our money is safely kept in our bank accounts under the safety and security of our CFOs and our Secretary Treasurer. The Elders Christmas party is this evening, just a reminder. I think social hour starts at 5, and then dinner at 6. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all our committee members for pulling together this holiday season to provide programs to all our people in the community. And thank you to our employees for continuing to provide services and programs to all our tribal citizens. And just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and peace and blessings in this new year. So, open forum, take it away.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Heather Dismuke. I'm the Youth Program Manager in Family Services. I wanted to make 2 announcements because I've been working really hard on these 2 things, and I want to make sure I get the word out. And I'm working with our wonderful Quapaw post getting the word out as well, but that won't happen until next week. So I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but I figured this would be the perfect opportunity. First off, I am in the process of trying to put out the word in hiring a contract therapist. I currently have 2 on my staff, but we are in need of more. I'm looking for someone that can work afternoons, evenings, and the primary focus is on kiddos and their families. So that is one of the things that I am working on. The second thing is in January, right before our BC meeting, January 18th through the 20th, I am hosting a pottery class, and this is for kids 6th grade to 12th grade from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and it's going to be right here in our pottery studio. I have only 15 slots. I already got 2 kids signed up, 3 kids signed up. So they're filling up fast, and I literally just put out the word yesterday. So if you guys have anybody in mind, they do not have to be Quapaw. They do have to be Native American. So if you want to get your kiddos signed up, spots are filling up fast. So there's my only 2 things. So if you need me, reach out. Thank you.
Great information. Thank you, Heather.
I have some of my own questions, and then I have questions that for people that wanted to be here but could not. So we're going to start with theirs. What are your thoughts? And Joseph, Ben has already talked to you. This is Ben's question. He has a question for each one of you on the business committee. What are your thoughts of just distributing that ARPA money to the tribe and calling it done? Individually, what are your answers? Joseph has answered and said he's fine with it.
Let's do it.
I'm absolutely supportive of distributing the remaining funds to tribal members.
I support it. I do want to hear back from the tribal members on the survey, though. It will help us in the future know where our attention needs to be.
I'll support it if that's what everybody else wants, but I feel that we do need to look into some sustainable stuff for our tribe as well, so.
If that's what the people want, then I would support it, but I also, as Mike, we need to look at some things that's going to sustain an income for the future of the tribe also.
Okay, so now for my
This
question.
is Michelle.
Oh,
Virginia,
sorry.
this is Michelle. Sorry. I too will support it, but I would love for us to be able to come up with something that could be sustainable that we can show for continuance within our nation for the future.
Right. That was Ben's question. He wanted to know where you all stood. He did send an email this week to Callie and Joseph was the one that responded. So he wanted to know individually what your stance on that was. I agree that we need some sustainable, but at the same time, it seems like we need to just do something. And I know it's hard to agree, and I know there's information coming from all avenues, and you have to explore those and see what the long term is. But again, that was his question, so now to mine. On July 4th, we talked about what your salaries were and the whole accountability, transparency thing. In part of that, to justify the salaries, was discussed that you're over our directors. Well, from what I've seen from this meeting that we had in the town hall, we have a department that's struggling and why? Why do they not have, what happened to their grants? Grants don't just go away. Was it the grant writer that didn't write the grants? And if so, then we need to figure out why they're not doing that. If it's directors not doing their job, then we need to figure out why. Grants don't just go away. I'm still weeks later just in awe that the response, and no offense, Michelle, I know you're struggling too, and I know it's hard. I've been in your spot. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad that I don't work for tribal government anymore. But they don't just go away. What happened? And we need to figure out what that deficiency is, wherever it's at, and we need to fix it. And that's part of the justification for your salaries.
You are absolutely correct. Don't want to get into the personnel issues as to how we ended up where we're at, but Michelle has taken the problem on, and she's got somebody working on grants now.
We talked about that.
Yes.
And we talked about that because I went to her and I'm like, I don't understand. They don't just go away.
It was not due to the board up here. There was all systems fail, so to speak, but it has been addressed, and all we can do is move forward from here on out.
But it has been addressed.
Yes.
And it's or in the process of correcting, I guess, if you can't immediately correct.
Yes, it does take time, but our eyes are on it, and we are working on it.
Okay.
It is a priority to us as well, and we're very upset how it happened.
Right.
But we're doing our best to rectify the situation.
Okay.
It was an after-the-fact type of thing.
Well,
I'd like to add to that, just to build off of those comments. So on the federal front, our overall grants, we've seen a decrease there in funding. In addition to that, we did have a grant writer leave. Our main grant writer left. I'm not going to say they left us holding the bag. I'm just going to say they left. So it created a challenge there that we've been having to work through. The housing department generally is a smaller department. So even though they are good at building, they are stretched thin. And in addition to all of those, QSA at the time shifted its focus. You know, it had construction services under QSA. It shifted focus more so to remediation of Tar Creek. So all of those are in combination, and the result is, you know, we do have a department that is challenged, and business committee is all committed to refocusing and paying some much needed attention to that area for all of our members. Thank you for, again, highlighting that and bringing it to our attention.
I'm still just dumbfounded. Anyway, that's my own. I'm a compliance person, so following the rules and doing what you're supposed to do is part of it just, like, all of my, makes me a little nauseous. And the fact that we've put a department that's doing wonderful things in jeopardy is scary too, in my opinion. I have a couple of other things, and then I'll leave you alone. You were in your report, you talked about the bear going back before Congress, and it's changing the bill number. So essentially starting all over, correct?
Yes.
And if so, then are you able to change the wording of that bill, since you're essentially starting over, to all tribal members?
So that's something that the business committee has been focused on, and that is a question that we plan to take with us to Congress whenever we're inside those meetings and meeting with those staffers and whoever is responsible for pushing the bill across, because the question then becomes, do we want to change language which would essentially result in starting over, like from the very beginning, and having to go garner all of the support and sponsorship, or no language change and it starts from there? I'm not going to say it's a halfway point, but we won't be starting completely back over.
It's not starting, but so changing the wording though would start back from A.
Correct.
In theory, you're like at, F or G, just to kind of.
That's correct.
Okay. So that was just another question. My other thing is, Joseph, we pay you $12,500 a month. Members, we pay you $10,416 a month. When you call your directors, do you expect them to answer your phone call or return your call?
Yes.
When we call you, we expect a return phone call. We pay you too much money not to answer our phone calls. And I'm not pointing at anybody indirectly or specifically. I'm just saying, when we call you, hopefully it's not because this is blue and I want it red. Hopefully it's for a legitimate reason. But we pay your salaries. We expect return phone calls.
Virginia, I take it, based on the way you're describing it, that's a challenge?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is simply because perhaps there's some simple steps that we can take to help remedy that. I know that
Well, I'm just saying, if you were paying me $10,000 a month, I better be answering your phone call.
Yeah, it's a reasonable
returning
expectation.
You expect your directors to call you back. We expect you to call us back. As a whole, everybody as a whole. And that's the rest of my complaints this time. I can't promise there won't be more, but that's enough for today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have a question. Can you give us an update on the tarot ordinance?
Yes, that is also in draft form with Witten Burridge. It is yet to be finalized. It's still in the review process, but it is a work in progress. And based off of everything that I've seen, it will be ready for vote by General Counsel in July.
So that office will not be set up until after General Counsel then?
I can't answer that, but most likely, yes.
Yeah, that is
Most
a general
likely.
council item, so.
I lied. I completely lied. I have one more question. Where do we stand on our language department? Part of bringing our culture back and keeping us as a people is our language. Where do we stand on those grants and developing that department and getting our children to learn our language and to learn some of those things that some of us grew up with and not everybody did? Where do we stand on that?
So Quapaw Nation was awarded, we were one of 5 tribes in Oklahoma to be awarded a BIA grant. We've utilized those funds to offset expenses for Billy Joe Proctor. And so he has been working very valiantly in bringing forward a Quapaw to English, English to Quapaw language dictionary.
Right.
And so because we have him as really the foremost asset and expert of Quapaw language, he's been dedicated to that. And that's why you don't necessarily see programming, i.e. classes. We can start to do that, but I don't want to speak for him. I think it takes, communication between him and the business committee. And I agree with you that whenever that component is missing, it looks like nothing is being done on the front end. And I do appreciate us being able to come together as a community and learning the language, but there is movement on the back end that's more of a long-term approach to that.
Well, to speak to the long term, and I realize that it goes back to funding, but this has been happening now for a good 3 to 4 years. Are we going to have to wait 3 to 4 more years before we actually have a department in place to do these things to help our community? Not everybody grew up with their grandparents teaching them Quapaw stories or teaching them language or, learning up the simple with the ashes on your forehead when you went outside at night. Not everybody grew up that way. So are we going to wait 4 or 5 more years before we have a department that helps bring some of that stuff at the boarding school era that we lost because of that era?
I remain committed to language revitalization, and I would assume that the business committee also stands committed to that, and it is something that we'll continue to look at. And we do want to provide better programming as well as have an established language department. And it's something I'll commit to you now to look into and refocus on.
Okay, I'm going to try to sit down again.
Thank you.
I guess a little bit along with what Virginia was just talking about, can we allocate some ARPA money to the language revitalization? I mean, I know that there's, and in the way of technology, all right? Because I know that there's tribes right now who have their own apps that tribal members can access. Is there any way that we could allocate some of those ARPA funds to creation of an app to start with, for one?
Absolutely. Technology in the way of distance learning and being able to reduce exposure to COVID illness is definitely allowable expense under those requirements.
Let's get them some money. The other question I had was in regard to these 7 vehicles that are being replaced. What happens with these vehicles? I know we go through this every couple of years. We buy more vehicles, and there's never any word on what happens to the other ones. Is there something in those grants that says what has to happen to those? Or can we as a tribe say that, we know that they're high mileage and sell them to our tribal members at a high mileage rate?
So I think
what is the definition of high mileage, right? And then, or also, can we dedicate those to even our business committee to have company vehicles to drive instead of using their own vehicles, right? I mean, this is 7 vehicles we're turning over right now. I mean, there's no need just to like sell them back to wherever we get the new vehicles from at a very discounted rate to them when we could get that discounted rate to our tribe.
So good questions. I think there's a couple of different answers to that. One is right out of the gate, those are used to transfer, or excuse me, not transfer, but they offset on a trade-in the cost of the vehicles to whatever dealership we're transacting with. So that's one thing that happens to those vehicles. Another one is, I know in previous scenarios, those vehicles go to other departments within the tribe as a depreciated asset, if I'm not mistaken. And did I answer?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, well, Virginia's asked, I'll ask for her. What is the definition of high mileage? Is there something in the grant that defines that?
I would say there is. I'm going to have to clarify, though, what
Okay.
that actually is.
Okay.
Does anybody in the back know? Eric or?
Yeah, GSA recommends 80,000.
80,000?
GSA recommends law enforcement vehicles start to be traded out around 80,000 miles because of the wear and tear and the unsafety issues that becomes prevalent when they get over 100,000 miles. But if under the grants, if the item is $5,000 or more still valued, then you can't sell those vehicles. So we do give those back to the other tribal departments to use. As you see several of them sitting out here that still got the spotlights on them, we remove all the equipment and they go back to other tribal programs to use. So that's GSA's mileage. What they determine is the time to start replacing those vehicles on law enforcement vehicles. If they're not law enforcement vehicles, the mileage is, of course, higher. We've got several that's got 140, 150, 160,000 miles on them. My transmission went out in mine. It had 160,000 miles on it. On my way here this morning was the reason I was late. So that's what we're dealing with right now is we've got probably 7 or 8 that's over 100,000 miles.
Okay. Thank you.
With it being a DOJ grant, is it required that they stay within a CTAS department, or can it be any department?
She's asking under the CTAS grant if the the vehicle has to stay within a CTAS department. There is the vehicles are supposed to be used for what they were received for, so they're supposed to stay within something along those lines in order to use the vehicles until they depreciate under $5,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. 80,000 miles is like a brand new vehicle to me. I mean, that's, I would like the business committee to consider business committee usage of vehicles of this. I know that we ask an awful lot of you guys to travel and to do things. You know, I mean, I use my personal vehicle a lot, and I wish that I didn't have to. And I think that, you know, we should extend that courtesy to the business committee, that whenever these things come up, that we try to take advantage of those, and us as a tribe be more self-supporting towards you, the business committee. Also, Virginia brought up something earlier that I would like everybody to know and consider on some of these items that are coming up with the governing resolution amendments and our Constitution as we approach it is pay, right? The statement was made that we pay you, X amount of dollars, when the reality is the DDA pays you, and we don't. You guys, we don't control that, right? We want to. We need to. We need to move that payment from the tribe out of the DDA's purview, right? That's where we have that control, and I just want everybody to consider that as we approach these new items. And that's all I get. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman.
To add to my comment, okay, the DDA, but that is still coming from the Quapaw tribe. We still want accountability, and we want responses from our business committee. If we reach out to you, each one of you are paid over $10,000 a month. I understand we require a lot out of you, but when we call you for, again, hopefully it's not something trivial, but when we call you with an actual concern, or we expect you to call us back, whether you're paid from the DDA or Joe Blow on the moon. We're paying you over $10,000 a month. You can return our phone call.
Here. One last item. I sit in these chairs for other reasons, that besides this meeting, and I've got a younger rear end than a lot of our elders here, and these things are hurting my hiney. So I just want to point that out. Maybe we could consider getting some better padded seats.
Good suggestion.
Ready for something else? All right.
Yes, sir.
Super and all. I'm tacking on to something Virginia said, but I want to remind you all that this board passed a resolution asking for an equal distribution of the $139 million, so that each of you would get $25,000. But there was never an effort to put that in the legislation. So when I brought it up the last time, he said, well, we don't want to do that now because it'd be like starting over, and there's going to be a new election. And now you're saying there's been a new election, but we don't know if we want to put that in there because it's like starting all over. It's kind of like double speak. But I want to ask each board member, because there's going to be more than one go to Washington, I hope. Are all of you, one at a time, committed to making an effort to get that resolution incorporated in the legislation? Do I pick you, or are you going to start yourself? What do you think?
So is the question, I just want to make sure I understand the question, Cuggy, that the commitment of each BC member to update the language in the bill so that it specifies full and equal distribution to all enrolled tribal members as of that date in September. Is that the question?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understood. So we did have a conversation about this yesterday. The whole idea of, the way I think of it is speed versus equity, okay? And we haven't had much speed, and we don't have a guarantee of equity. Those two things concern me a great deal. I would like, and we talked about it yesterday, and ultimately the decision was, let's listen to what the legislators have to say in terms of, would it really set the clock back so horribly if we changed the language? What is the real nature of that question? We've received responses that I think are pretty politically charged as opposed to necessarily the truth. Because the legislation was introduced July 27th, 2021. And to date, it never got out of subcommittee. So we not only want it to get out of the various subcommittees and get passed by Congress, for hopefully signature by the president. But at the same time, that's not the only important matter. We want to make sure that once that funding becomes available, that it is distributed appropriately, equitably to everybody, which is equally. At the end of the day, this currently 6-person business committee, we have to be united at least by virtue of majority. Now, I will share with you my own personal opinion, and it's not anything different than I haven't said 100 times to other people. I want that language changed because I am too fearful that if we give Congress another reason to really mess this up, they will. They will. It's our job to make sure that we do everything humanly possible to ensure not only a speedy distribution, but also an equitable distribution, which means it goes equally to everybody. Now, that's my personal opinion. At the end of the day, and I made a commitment to this business committee yesterday, if as a group, the majority decides we're just going to plow right ahead based on existing language, then I will support that. But I'm not going to change my own personal view.
Well, I want to clarify something. You said you do want to change the language, but you want to change the language to provide for equal distribution to all members of the tribe.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see, if I remember correctly, 4 specific changes. 1, I want landowners removed. Number 2, I want the tax treatment clarified so that upon distribution, it does not become taxable. 3rd is probably a kind of a not particularly important one, but it's to ensure that any references of Quapaw tribe equal Quapaw nation. It's not, in my mind, it's not written properly in the current bill. And last but not least, I want the distribution, the full and equal distribution to all enrolled members as of September 27, 2019 in the bill.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and take this approach because every time you question me, you think I'm talking double-sided out of both sides of my mouth. I echo what Weena said.
I never said that. That sounds like a guilty conscience.
Right. So I'm going to echo what Weena had to say and answer in the affirmative and say, yeah, I'm committed to language change as well.
Thank you.
I'm also going to follow suit with what Weena said. I would like to know what the implications are as far as starting over goes, and that's going to be answered when we get face-to-face with them. But I completely see where Weena's coming from, and I do agree. I think the comment was made when we were discussing this yesterday. If you ask people, do you want the money now or do you want to try to do it again? What do you think your answer is going to be? We really need to get our information, our facts, to be able to make an educated decision on how to move forward. Because if we can keep the language the same and we can guarantee everything that, is on Weena's list, I say let's go for it. But if we can't, then we need to start over again. So that's how I feel right now about it.
Thank you. Mike?
I agree with the language change. That's not a problem. As for a speedy and equitable disbursement, I don't think that's going to happen.
Since day one and since I was elected by the people for the best interests of the people, then I would concur, that if possible, it doesn't throw us back to day one, that we do the language change. But I have always felt, and I still feel, that it should be equal amount to every member that was on the rolls as of September, and I thought it was the 19th, but irregardless of that day, 2019, everyone on the roll at that time should have an equal participation in that money.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Cookie. And I like your hat, sir.
This is Michelle. I just want to echo everyone's sentiments as well. Excuse me.
I have a question, and maybe not so much a question, but maybe something that that we can think about, seeing how we are on the bear discussion. I am very happy to hear that you guys are all on board for equal distribution. one of the things that I would like to put maybe at the forefront of your mind is our kiddos. One of the things I would like to request is that for our kids that will be receiving, if they do, when, if, whatever, that their funds get put into a trust until the age of 18, and when they turn 18, then they can receive that funds. There you go, interest bearing, in an interest bearing account. Just because, honestly, if I received however much money for my kid, because only one of my kids are going to be on there, I'd probably distribute it between all my kids. But you know what? That's his right. That's his inherent right. And I want to make sure that he knows that that's his when he turns 18. And what he does with that at 18, then that's his choice. But I don't want to have my hands in it. I don't want to have my husband and my family's hands in it. I want to make sure he gets it. So something to kind of think about when we're talking about our kiddos. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of questions real quick. One was Virginia brought up an excellent point earlier about grants and ramifications. Whenever tribal nations lose grants, there can be long-term ramifications for applying for future grants and your reputation with certain federal agencies. And I've never seen a description of what grants have ever been lost by the Quapaw Nation. Could we receive a report over grants that have been lost or returned within the last 20 years?
20?
Yeah. We had the last chairman for about that long.
Fair enough. I don't know exactly how much that entails, but I can tell you we'll start working on it and formulate a plan to at least bring that information together and consolidate that. I think that's useful information.
I think it would be useful and not terribly difficult. As someone who manages a grant for a department, they're well documented, and I guarantee there's documentation of any grant funds that have been returned. I also wanted to mention that Virginia brought up something that is a valid point. Sometimes we want to get a hold of our elected officials and we have difficulty doing that, and that's understandable considering they have lots of things going on, and then I'm sure they receive lots of phone calls, but then we expect them to make a return effort, and we used to have a position for a BC secretary, and that still remains vacant. I just want to encourage you to obtain one of those, because communication is important, and such things could be delegated to a secretary, but for some reason we don't have one. I just want to mention that. And I also wanted to mention something that's been brought up a lot. If you read Forbes or other large publications, they've been talking about ever since the pandemic, there was something they called the Great Resignation. Many people from the so-called boomer generation have been resigning from the workplace. And then people that are younger have been calling it the Great Relocation, which is an interesting term. But a lot of people are moving from very urban areas for remote work and seeking less urban areas for cheaper cost of living. And that's been something that's been saying is going to happen for about 2 decades, and it's happening right now. Really, really large movement of people is happening across the United States, and we are losing an opportunity to provide good community for tribal members to return home to, and they're moving to other places. We have an opportunity to reverse some of what the government did whenever they sent people to other places with the Indian Relocation Program, and we're losing that opportunity. People are moving all over the United States to places that are less urban for a reason. And I just want to mention to you all that that's something that I think that we should be looking into. I've said it before, but I want to say it again. And then finally, I want to tell you, as the Secretary of the Quapaw Native American Church, you all made a donation, and we've been using it and continue to use it for a number of things. We've done some work around our summer house, bought food for our last meeting. I just want to tell you all, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all y'all's efforts, and for the ones that have shown up and helped with our events and helped clean up. I just want to tell you thank you. We see you and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Everett.
Good morning. My name is Joey DeSmith. I work for the tribe in the Quapaw CCDF program. I'm the director, but I'm also a tribal member. So I had a few questions. Just hearsay that there's plans in place to either rebuild the rebuild the casino, the Quapaw casino, or tear it down and start all over, or whatever. I don't really. There's just been rumors I've been hearing. Is any of that true?
Yes, we conducted a feasibility study. The Quapaw Casino building is currently not in the greatest shape.
Right.
There are architects currently working on a plan, and we should have the general manager come present what his ideas are. They are almost to a final product to present. They've been working with their managers to find out what the need is, and we should have something presented to you very soon.
So right now, even with the problems and issues, and I know that building is very old because I started working in, well, my mom worked in there, my whole family worked in there when it was bingo, and in 1996 I worked in it when there was a daycare in there. So I know the problems and issues with the expenses of that building. But right now, is that casino bringing in revenue enough to cover the expenses?
Yes, they have enough money in their bank account to where we do not have to go and take a loan on it.
So, but I was thinking, and this is just me, I'm not a business major or anything like that, but why do we need to do it right now? And why can't we put that revenue towards something like, like Linda's program, the little small houses or tiny houses, sorry for calling it wrong, but why can't we use that revenue to do something right now instead of tearing that down and just doing something now? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
This project has been in the works since 2018.
Okay.
It is a slow-moving project. We want to make sure that it is absolutely feasible and the right choice to make. The decision has been made a priority for the safety of our guests and our employees.
Okay. All right, that answers my question. I just wanted to know. And as far as that goes, we found out that there's mold in the building that I'm currently working in. There's in the trailer across the way. And so what is because I haven't really, what are you going to do with us? I mean, and how soon? Because I just wondered with.
They just started demolishing the old OLC.
Okay.
It also had mold problems. The plan is to place your office as well as tribal member services in a new building, and they are prioritizing it right now and working on it. So as soon as it's done, it's done. You guys have been moved out of the trailer to our knowledge. That trailer is going to go away. And in the meantime, you guys are being relocated to an office for your health to take care of that issue as an immediate fix.
Where is that office?
It's going to be over at the QSA building on Main Street.
So how soon will that take place?
As far as I know, it was supposed to be taking place last week.
No.
Well,
So
then
I'm
consider it
still
next
in
week.
that
It's a priority.
building.
They're making
Okay.
room for you, so
We just haven't been communicated with then. So.
I apologize for that.
And with that being said, as a director of the, here, we're not given any input on what our program needs as far as what size of office we need, or what our needs are for our own specific program. And so I kind of, know that there's going to be like a 10 by 10 offices. I've seen a display of what's going to go into the OLC building, or the old building. But I just wondered, is there any kind of way that we can have input onto what our department actually needs as far as, our growth and expansion, instead of just here, stick us in this office 10 by 10, but we're going to need something bigger in the long run.
I would suggest giving your suggestions to your director.
Okay.
And sending it up the chain of command.
Okay.
I mean, that building the design of it is not finalized.
Okay.
Our main concern is fixing it.
Right.
It's got a mold problem.
Right.
And
Well,
we need
in
to
the
utilize it because there is no more land.
Yeah, and because in the last meeting it said demolish the OLC due to ongoing mold problems. So that was what I thought was going to happen, was they were going to demolish it and be no more. So I just didn't know.
They're in the process of gutting it right now, reevaluating the mold, going to bring in options to figure out where the problem is at so we can move forward and have it done correctly.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joita.
I apologize. I keep having all these great ideas from people's discussions. Seeing how the mold issue has been brought up, one of the things I would like to ask you guys is to look at our OSHA regs, our regulations in general within the tribe, because they are antiquated. If somebody that works for the tribe, if they are exposed to mold, they are not covered. They are pretty much SOL. Pretty much you get sent home and you have to just do whatever you can to get better. But there is nothing that covers our employees that are exposed to mold. And in almost every single one of our buildings, we have mold issues. I mean, Quixota has mold issues. The old OLC has mold issues. It's a perpetual thing. Our HR building has mold issues. I mean, our admin building has mold issues. And none of our employees are covered under our antiquated policies. The only reason I know that is because I looked into it, because my poor husband had to go to Pitcher, and while he was in Pitcher, he got very sick from the mold that's in Pitcher because he's having to do, what's it called, where inventory. And while he was there, he was exposed to mold, and then he had an infection, and he was out of work for 3 days. And our policies do not cover him. But that is one of the things I would like to ask you guys to look into. Please.
Yeah, we'll look into it. Thank you, Heather.
Change of subject, and I lied. I'm back. Welcome back. Thank you. So, Joseph and I talked after the town hall about the education. And we were talking about, and I've talked with other people about, how do you change people's mindset? Well, you change their mindset by educating them. In order to educate them, you have to, unfortunately, sometimes provide incentives. There are tribes in Oklahoma, within 100 miles of us right now, who provide 6 hours a week for their employees to go to college. Those are now they have to actually go to class. I mean, it has to be verified that you're in class, but they are provided those 6 hours a week. And Joseph, I was wrong. It's to all employees, not just tribal. We want educated people. We want an educated pool for our business committee. We want an educated pool for our departments, our employees. Well, in order to do that, you have to provide that. And because some people don't have that opportunity. Fortunately for Daryl and I, when our kids were growing up, we had good jobs. But we didn't have the chance. We're educated in the business world, but we don't have degrees per se. And we've worked our way up to where we are in our departments and in our jobs because, fortunately, we're not entirely stupid. And not that anybody is, but just that when you don't have that, when your mindset is, I have 4 kids that I have to provide for, and they have sports, and they have this, and they have this. Your mindset at that point as a parent is provide for your children. Do what you have to do to make their life better because that's everybody's goal. But once you get there to where I am now, yeah, I'm educated in the business world, but I don't have that lambskin that says that I have that degree. So when you go out into the world that's not a tribal world, that you've not worked your way up to that position and proven yourself in that position, you don't have that piece of paper. So with our employees, if we could provide them with at least that opportunity, one, it'll, I think, push our employees to get that degree, because we're offering, if you do this, like Joetta's program, when they go in there, if they don't have the education, they have to go get it, do they not?
It's not mandatory, but we offer it to them.
Right. So why can't we do that with the rest of our employees, whether they're tribal or not?
Is that offered at the casinos? Do they do tuition reimbursement at the casinos?
For tribal employees, yes.
I'm not talking about tuition reimbursement because we already do that. I'm talking about, here's an hour and a half today to go to class.
Like a retention incentive.
Yes. To go to class. But I mean, obviously you have to go. You can't just take the hour and a half and you know, whatever. But it's an incentive to get that education, because everybody has children. Everybody has things that they have to do. But if you have that extra time where maybe you can take one class a semester, that just helps with that little bit of, because that's how the mindset will change. That's the only way it's going to change. Try to sit down again.
Thank you. Good points.
I've got a question pertaining to the general council coming up next month. I think I have some questions that require legal counsel. And if I wait till next month to ask them, I'm afraid it's going to get complicated, and it runs into a lot of time, you know, just like the last one. So if I had a question that requires legal advice, have you got a suggestion as to how I could go about getting my answer before the meeting? Because some of the questions I have may not even fit into those amendments. And therefore, just I wouldn't even have to bring it up. It just maybe it'd be the wrong place to do it. So how can I get access to legal counsel to save you all a lot of time, everybody?
I think just off the cuff with your question, it would be most appropriate to have some type of communication between you and the Constitution Committee, because they have a committed legal counsel to answer and to address not just the questions that are up for discussion, but any and all things related to our governmental reform.
So I should direct those questions to.
I think that's appropriate. What do you think? Or any of BC?
I would share that with the BC, but I do believe that sharing it with the Constitution Committee would be the appropriate step.
You may want to remind them of the email address that's used.
Exactly what I'm doing. Thank you. What I just said off microphone to Kogi's question is that I believe the appropriate first step would be to, if you have any legal questions, to present them to us, and we could ask our legal counsel. But at the same time, we would also be sharing those questions with the business committee in case that they see any other issue that we may miss. And those questions can be directed to our email, and that's constitution.committee@quapawnation.com.
Thank you.
I had one more thing in regard to what Kogi brought up in questioning everybody on the language change. And I would be interested to know in that language change, because since 2019, we have had a lot of tribal members and our elders move on right? And I would like it to be clarified on, does their spirit exist in an estate as of that date? If anything happens to me before this money is allocated, I would like that to be able to be passed to my son, right? And I think that there's a lot of that to consider also with those who have moved on, who left family behind, and in waiting for this, it'd be nice to know that that wasn't in vain, right? So just something to consider.
I agree with you, Roman. That was something that I believe Bonnie Gilmore brought that up some time ago, asking for clarification, and it's yet to be clarified. But I'm right there with you on the sentiment about folks that have passed on, leaving something to their legacy behind, and making sure that it wasn't in vain. I agree with you. I think all the business committee would agree as well.
Ready? Okay, 3 things I have on my mind. One is, why is Joetta, as the director of the OLC, in a trailer instead of in this brand-new building that was just built last year as an office?
She is not the director of the OLC. She's the director of the CCDF.
And that's not continued with, it's not combined?
2 separate jobs.
But it doesn't deal with the daycare?
It does, but it does not absolutely mean that she needs to be in the daycare building. She can be anywhere.
I see.
And we are lacking on office spaces as well, so we're trying to get them built, but we are beyond capacity right now, so.
Oh, I understand that. That's been that way since 1970. That's another thing. The Quapaw Casino building was built for a mop factory. The walls weren't, there wasn't floors, there wasn't bathrooms, there wasn't insulation, there wasn't anything in that building that as it sits now. It's been updated and updated and updated for years and years and years. Every time something different went in, it was updated to its capacity. And that little casino, even as a big bingo hall, was what started this tribe. It's what started this income for this tribe. So we need to remember that. We need to keep it going. It's a landmark. It's a landmark as it is, but in my mind, it's how we got started as economically here. And it'd be very sad to see it go down the tubes, to me.
You have any suggestions on what to do with that building?
Probably not bingo. No, it could be, I feel like it could probably be gutted for some kind of a warehouse. But I don't know, I'm not a building person. I don't know what you'd have to get someone to come in there and see. It is dangerous. It is dangerous to be in there.
We'll take a look at it. We just don't want to make a rash decision.
Certainly. Yeah, and I wasn't speaking that. I just mean that a new building, I think, should be built and should be made available to continue Quapaw Casino. And whether the old building stays or goes is probably more of a OSHA issue or something, someone that knows about buildings and the safety of it. The structure of it is good, but I don't know about any of the rest. I know at one point in time there was so many cables up in the ceiling. I don't know what kept the ceiling up, but they have removed some of that. So over the last few years. And then my third thing is Downstream Casino Resort and the operations and the individuals that are running it. And I know that saying all this probably won't change a thing because I know the business committee's hands off on directing them to do things. But I think that the general counsel should know what's going on. I have gone to New Year's Eve dinner there for the last, I don't know how many years. I called in November to get a reservation. I talked with the operator. She said she would take down the information and someone would get back to me. I waited for a week or two. No one got back to me. I called. No one answered. I called the restaurant. No one answered. Finally, someone did answer, and they said that they couldn't get into the computer because they weren't the manager or director, so they couldn't see if I had a reservation or not, and to call back at a certain time. So I called back again several times at a certain time. No one answered. So I called one evening, and a little girl answered. Same thing. She couldn't get into the computer, but she did offer to take down my name and my number and say that I was looking for verification as to whether I had a reservation or not, and that she would leave it there for him. Didn't get an answer. Still haven't gotten an answer. So last week, I tried to call the general manager. You can't get through to the general manager. You have to go through his assistant. That's what I was told. So I went through his assistant, Lana, and he was in a meeting, and he was going to be in another meeting, which is verifiable, I guess. And so I told her what I wanted. I said, I tried to get a reservation in November at the hotel for some of my family to stay. And I was told that the hosts had all of the rooms. Now, there's over 300 rooms in that hotel. The hosts, are we that greedy that we have to have the host cater to the high rollers? And Quapaw tribal members or others can't call and get a reservation? That's very sad to me, very sad to me. Also,
I just need clarification. Were you getting a reservation for food and a
Both.
hotel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, two different, I lapped over there for two different things. So I told her, I tried to get them, oh yeah, well they've got them all tied up. They're filling them all up. We're all full to capacity. I said, I called in November. This was just yesterday that I talked to her. She didn't even call me back. I had to call her again to find out if she found out if I had a reservation for the Red Oak. She said there are no reservations either place. She said I'm the bearer of bad news, but she didn't call me back. I had to call her again. And I said, well, that's your job, I guess. And so I have no reservation in Red Oak. This was since November. I called in November. I can't tell you what date. Anyway, no reservation to go to dinner. No reservation at the hotel, which I already knew because I'd been told that the host had all the hotel rooms tied up, available to them to decide. So I think it's very sad that that's the situation, that the hosts tie up all the rooms for high rollers or their people that they have under them, and no one can get a reservation. So, and I just think that you all should know that that kind of thing is going on, and it doesn't seem real to me that they have to be so greedy that they tie up all of the rooms and the reservations at the restaurants for high rollers.
Hi, my name is Julia Peebushi. I work right now currently at the Downstream Casino front desk. And it's true, But just as a reminder that these individuals come for an experience that pays millions of dollars, sometimes more than $1 million in a month. So these are experiences that they come to us for. So yes, we do use all 374 rooms for our high rollers, platinum players that I see and deal with on a daily basis. And I'm sure that we can get you some rooms. I know some individuals that would be able to help you with that. So just to clarify why we do what we do.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Yeah.
Oh, this discussion of working at the hotel is relieving some trauma when I worked there. This is just an idea. Having been a GSA there when I was in college, I love my tribal members, but some of us can be less than pleasant to deal with sometimes. And my main concern here too is because we do have a duty to our patrons to keep supporting them. So, as someone who had to deal with angry Quapaw members, since I was obviously the Quapaw member on the staff at the time, I got put on the firing line a lot. Maybe we can consider getting 1 or 2 hosts that were designated to work with the host staff who are designated to work with tribal members and organizing all the access to our facilities for tribal members.
Good idea. Thank you, Michael.
This is Tyler over here in IT as well. I would just like to echo going back to the education thing. I've been very fortunate in terms of having access to the education program over the course of my college years and certifications, but it definitely bothers me that employees that are non-tribal don't have access to the same things. Some of the certifications that I've done require usually up to $300 to even try it one time, and I think even just lowering any barriers to that is a great decision. I've got people in our department that would really benefit from things like that, but either can't afford it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you said, Joseph, at the education banquet that I liked is that education is the great equalizer, and nobody can take that away from you. So I would just like to echo that, and maybe that's something we can look into.
Thank you.
But I do have somebody on Zoom if we want to start doing that now as well. Oh, okay. Sorry, Linda.
That's okay, Tyler.
I'm back before you again on a different subject matter, but I have been approached by multiple tribal members, and we know that a lot of things have transpired just since our last business committee meeting, but I want to bring this forward because, once again, I have said if somebody brings it to me, I will bring it to you. We know that there's been a recent resignation from the BC, and we also know that this individual has also now been hired as a tribal employee. I would like to know what deems a person, and I don't necessarily have a fight in this either way, but I'm just bringing this information forward because I feel like, because it's once again been brought to me, I'm bringing it to you, and it helps to eliminate scuttle and rumor mill. What I'm asking, and I hope that you can explain this better, not only to me, but to the nation as a whole, what constitutes a person from being hireable, again, and non-hireable? That's the basic explanation. And then, once again, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I just would like for that to be put at rest and hopefully ease some minds. And if anybody wants to start, that's fine by me.
I'll go ahead and say that the business committee only hires directors and above. The BC was not a participant in that hiring process. And within each department, those decisions are left to the hiring manager and directors directly responsible for those.
Okay. And that, okay, so I appreciate that answer that you've just given. So can somebody clarify then, regardless of this situation, can somebody clarify what is an example or what, once again, makes a person eliminated to be rehired or not rehirable? Because we do have tribal members that have been deemed not rehirable. And again, I am truly not trying to stir anything at all. I just, once again, I'm simply stating what's been brought to me that I want to bring forward to you, because individuals fear a retaliation if they get up and speak. And so, with that being said, I'm speaking on their behalf, but I do also have concerns.
So I appreciate you bringing those concerns forward to us. I'd like to think that the business committee doesn't retaliate, and I assume that's who you're referring to in terms of there being a fear of retaliation.
All the way down. I'm not just necessarily saying business committee, but all the way down. Business in department, it goes to levels of directors as well, where there is that fear to be able to express yourself without fear of retaliation. And it's a fact. We know it's there. We would like to maybe say that it's not there, but it's a hidden subject that is there.
Just to speak on that for a moment, I just recently started a whistleblower policy. So that is in the works, and hopefully next month we can have something to present on that. As far as this employee that you're talking about, I can only speak for myself. I just learned of the news yesterday. And as far as the question you're asking about what is hireable and non-rehirable, I will have to talk with HR about that. So this is all news to me, and I've already started asking some questions, and I'm sorry I don't have any answers for you, but we can follow up.
And I'm certainly not, I don't want to take anybody's livelihood away from anybody. That's not what I'm standing here before you for. It's just, once again, I want things to be expressed in a manner that we can bring them out and discuss and eliminate and remediate from any future endeavors. So, gonna go. Thank you, Roman.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Kvistad, and talking about that, you know, I applied for several jobs and was told I didn't have it. Then I asked the director of house cleaning, I said, are you tribal? She said, no. I said, she goes, I worked my way up. And she's old too. But yet I wasn't hireable. But I could clean because I couldn't pick something up heavy than 50 pounds or whatever. Well, I can't. I still have health problems. It ain't gonna go away because I'm gonna get older this year. And then I go to work to downstream. I'm in a suit. I can't do nothing in a suit. The tie literally baffles me. I mean, the whole getting up. I'm not a man that I have to put my shirt in and put a belt on. I'm not a man. And a lot of them disagree with the suits, but they're afraid to go to their supervisor. They're afraid to go up the chain of command. I'm not afraid, but I need a job. And I work as security. And I like that job. I like the excitement, especially when they got drug dealers in there and they got pills all over and people picking them up, and it's exciting because I'm way over there watching. Yeah, they do cater to people, but they cater to the big leagues. These other little hoodlums that come in after when I work at midnight, it's dangerous too. And we don't have heat at the front door, or number 1, post 1. And it's cold. I stand there. I know. But I like my job. But something got to change. If the DDA's paying you, then maybe y'all need to go in and see what's really going on. And I prefer 5'11" pants and a polo shirt. Because if... That ain't funny. It's serious. Them suits is making everybody, because men know how to dress as a suit. Us women, we don't. Oh, let's see, is that all I gotta say? Well, for today I do. I'll think about some more later. But I'm still angry about that. I don't like to wear a suit, but I had to put it on Sunday night until you all get it changed or looked into or something. And for the GM and the assistant GM, they don't do nothing there. They just chit-chat all the time. They're not in no business meeting. I'll tell everything.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm gonna talk about what Linda talked about a little bit, and just say, just like I said, like she said, I'm not looking to take away anybody's welfare, and it's Christmas time and whatever, but at the same time, a business committee member takes an oath. Paramedics take an oath. Police officers take an oath. The marshals take an oath. What was said about my brother is very upsetting. So, my mom's not happy. She's real angry, but she can't be here because she's sick. But she's real angry, What if she calls our 911 and they send out a certain paramedic? She's not going to be happy with that. What if my brother is, at some house, a random house, calls 911 and he's dying and a certain paramedic shows up and he has to work on that person? How's that ethical? How's that right? I do my job, and I go by ethics, and I do the best job I can, and I feel like I'm a very ethical person. We're not all perfect, I understand that. But showing up at my family's house, if you're called by 911, I don't feel like it's very ethical. Thank you.
Joe.
What?
I said thank you.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I thought
I'm
you
sorry.
said something. I
No.
thought you said Joe.
I have a question because we're talking on ethics. This individual resigned. We've had several other business committee members resign. We've also had several employees be fired or let go And if we're going to hold, this is it's more of a question. Sorry, my mind's kind of like thinking about this. Because I think our business committee should be held to the same standard as all of our employees, downstream at the tribe, so on and so forth. We all have to wait 6 months before we can apply for a position. It hasn't even been 1 month. And this individual, I'm not, and once again, I don't want to take from his livelihood. We need to take care of all of our tribal members and make sure that we take care of their families because they are our people. Don't get me wrong on that. But if you are going to hold other business committee members, previous business committee members, at that same level, then we need to do it across the board. And we shouldn't have any favoritism. And I understand, you know, that individual was hired by a director, not the business committee. But if I had to wait 6 months, other people have had to wait 6 months, then everyone should be held to the same standard and make it equitable. Because a lot of people here know my story. They know that after 6 months of me waiting to apply for a position, after that 6 months, I started applying back with this tribe. 30 jobs, 30 job applications and interviews, 1 year before I finally got a job back with this tribe, back with my people. If you're gonna hold me to that standard, then you need to hold it across the board. And I'm looking at every single one of you, besides the new ones. Y'all know. And every single one of these people know my story. So if we're gonna hold one person at 6 months, we need to hold everyone at 6 months. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Heather. Anybody else?
While we're speaking about this particular individual, when you become a policeman, EMS, don't you take an oath to preserve life? I know we all mouth, you and I have discussed this, we all mouth. But to consistently continue the conversation and then to, for a good, 4-5 minutes, it was discussed? And then to say, well, you know how Ottawa County is. There's unresolved murders all the time. Is that really the caliber of person that we want working for us? So there's that statement. My second statement is a question. He resigned. Did we give him a severance package?
No.
Good.
Hi, this is Roman. To kind of speak to that also, while there was no severance package and the contents of that recording that made such light of manipulating this business committee, manipulating you guys and your vote, right, to equal it to 3-3, you know, and joking about something so heinous, whether it was locker room talk or not. I don't care. I respect this body a hell of a lot more than that, than to joke about killing somebody to manipulate a vote, which brings me to the next point. That vote that was being joked about was a $5 million pension fund that EMS, if I'm not mistaken, gets to take a part of. So while he may not have gotten a severance from the DDA or the business committee, he's walking into a wonderful pension that he joked about knocking off a business committee member to get it passed, right? Now, there's no way to color that in any kind of color to make it, palatable, right? So I just wanted to share that and also encourage you, if this conflict of interest or this ethics policy is there, I mean, it's pretty clear. Everybody has a copy of it now. There's a part of it that is pretty clear that talks about morals and kindness, right? And if that's in fact in place, that should apply to that hiring also.
Thank you, Roman.
I do got something to say. Hi, I'm Amy again. Another thing I'm learning is that they say confidentiality. There's none at downstream, and there's none here amongst us. Everybody knows what's going on because people like to talk. Now, those other rumors that was told earlier, I didn't hear that. So sometimes I get left out. I didn't mean to say it like that, but anyway. But at downstream, there is no confidentiality. Even with the marshals. I know. I'm going to tell it because I'm a tribal person. But I don't like wearing those ties and a belt. And if I have to go through the chain of command and then I get fired, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to really be mad. I am serious. Anyway, I'm a real Quapaw. Hey.
Thank you, Amy.
They can't hear you on Zoom.
Zoom ought to be here if they want to know what's
So
going on.
part of the other importance too is that so the people in the future can have this record, and it would be super nice for anybody 20, 30, 50 years from now to be able to come back and view this again. I think that would be great.
Well, you're very young, but they may not want to hear this. You made a comment a month or so ago that you were restructuring the business committee. There's no administrator or business committee manager or whatever the title was. So how did you reconstruct? We've never been told how the employees might know here, but general counsel does not know how you've reconstructed and what departments you have and how many directors or whatever you're calling them, how many of them are there and how many different sections or departments have you divided it into and what's under who and who those people are. Like if we need to go to a director, like we know at downstream there's a Stewart guy and at Quapaw there's Kenny and different ones, but who are these people now that are over these departments and what are they and who are they? You talked about not hiring and that the person, in charge of whatever it is, I guess the medical and ambulance and stuff is all under one umbrella.
Yeah, so, and I'll try, Barbara. So the net impact of the organization was it flattened it out. You know, previously we had a tribal administrator, and basically all departments, all directors rolled up to a single tribal administrator. That particular position was eliminated, and then basically filled by a number of executive director positions, most of which have not been filled, okay? So one area that remained unchanged was CFO organization. Okay, so that was previously under Eric, and that will continue to be the case. There was another position created, executive director over culture and events. That position is still open. We have not started interviewing for it. Really good applicants have been received, but I don't expect those interviews to start until after the first of the year, okay? Another area is resource management. So
What's under that person? Like
So CFO?
No, I understand what's
Oh.
under CFO, but like the people that you're getting ready to name, what departments are under those individuals?
culture and events would include the language department, the new event coordinator, the TIPO office, the NAGPRA program, library, museum, and I think that's all of them. I'm going off of memory, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. So the next one would be, I think I mentioned it, resource management. So that's going to include a number of areas such as QSA, Quapaw Cattle Company. So that will include the meat processing plant. Yeah, so all the bison that are part of the Quapaw Cattle Company. Sorry, I'm just going to pull it up real quick. But the point is, everything that is either, and realty would also be included. So land management, natural resource management, you know, especially for those things that are involved with remediation. We wanted to make sure all of those areas were included together. And I think, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got food sovereignty as a part of that because they go hand in hand with most of those areas as well, okay? So hopefully that gave you a good flavor. Another area, you mentioned it before, was the executive director of Department of Public Safety. So that brought together the courts, marshal, EMS, fire, Quapaw Counseling Services. I might be missing. Another area is there is no director over that. The position is open. It has not been interviewed for. Yeah, presumably by the existing director, but the new executive director has not been hired. The position is posted, but no interviews have been conducted thus far.
Can we get an org chart that tells us how this all flows?
The plan is to put the work chart out in this first year and then also revamp our resource handbook that everybody received for general counsel last summer.
And just a snarky question, because I'm kind of feeling snarky. How many people are related to Susie Jackson that are employed?
I don't have that answer.
Just, I actually literally was just asked to ask that question, so there it is. We want to know, apparently. When does hiring start for all of these positions? Y'all should have gave me a list before I came up here.
So we just conducted interviews this week for the executive director over tribal member services. That offer was extended yesterday and accepted.
Now, those positions were listed on the website for a short amount of time, and then they were pulled down and not put back up. So was your day only like 4 or 5 days that you were accepting applications? Because I saw it on there, because I go back and I look every so often. Every so often I get a hair of, maybe I want to work for the tribe again, but you guys don't feel that I'm even qualified to be the receptionist, so I'll stick to my compliance in aerospace. But it was only there for 3 or 4 days, and then it was gone. And the last time I looked, probably a week ago, it was not there. So what was your opening date and closing date? It seems to that it was a very small period.
Yeah, it was open for a while. Basically, what they did was followed standard policy between, making it available to internal employees initially. Then I think the second step is it goes to, for tribal employees, then it goes to all employees, then it went external as well.
Let me ask you, when it's open for internal employees, so there was a position that opened recently that interviewed some employees, but then a non-employee tribal member was interviewed and got that position. Does the tribal member fall under? Does the tribal member fall under employees?
Can you repeat your question? I'm not sure I'm following.
So there was a
Virginia.
position that recently opened, that it was open, they were interviewing internal employees, so here and downstream. But the person that was hired was not an employee of either downstream or the tribe, but they were a tribal member. So that person was hired, it is my understanding, without it being open to all tribal members. So my question there is was that tribal member, or is, in that situation, were they considered part of the internal? Because if you're separating it out of downstream, the tribe, as internal, then how are we hiring a tribal member when it's not been open yet for a position?
It was open to, that's tier 2, which is all casinos, the Quapaw Nation, and all tribal members. And there was multiple tribal members, that was interviewed. I mean, outside.
Just saying, people are starting to watch what y'all are doing.
And it was tier 2. I mean, it was by the policy.
And, well, okay, watching and talking over here ain't doing a dadgum thing. Walking and talking here, maybe at least they're going to start listening. Eventually they start listening to the greasy wheel, do they not? When your car starts, I mean, at some point, they've got to be accountable. And at some point, we have to stand up here and say, dadgummit, you're accountable. We're watching. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm glad you brought it up because and I don't know what those circumstances were at all, Virginia, but if it even lends the appearance that, it wasn't really being made available to all external.
And that's exactly how it appeared.
Yeah.
I don't have a dog in that fight. Not one of my relatives applied for that job. But it was brought to my attention. So I'm going to ask. I'm tired. Like I told Joseph the other day, the days of, my mom would say, sit down, sis. It's okay. They've all done it. Sit down, sis. Well, my mom's not here to tell me to sit down anymore. And I'm tired of watching. Victor Griffin is my grandfather. Hayes Griffin is my grandfather. These men, your relatives, Tall Chief, Grandma Stafford, they all suffered for us to be here. Dang it, Amy. What? I'm Abby. Now I sound like you up here. But they all suffered. And Julia and I were talking today, coming over here, that those old folks, when they'd go into those peyote meetings, they prayed for us today. And someday it's going to be, I'm a grandma now, so someday it's going to be my great-grandchildren. And I want something for them. And if you can't, and it starts by somebody saying something. Somebody has to stand up and say, we're watching you. And and if you know me, yeah, I have a big mouth, but I follow my actions. And I stand behind what I say. And I'm not gonna sit back anymore.
I'm not going to be complacent, and I'm not going to be quiet anymore, because this ultimately benefits generations down the road. The decisions you make today, tomorrow, next week, they affect your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. And you need to think about that. Because when they get to where I am now, Victor was chief until 58. And people today still tell me, your grandpa was a good man. Your grandma was a good woman. What are they going to say about you? What are they going to say about you? Those are things that you have to think about. And maybe not, but those are things that I think about. Because when I can go 100 miles away from here and people will say, I knew your grandfather. I knew your mother. They were good people. Your grandfather did a lot for us. Those are things that I look for. And it makes me proud, because Victor's been dead since 58. And it makes me proud that people, and my grandpa's been dead since 82, and it makes me proud. So what are they going to say about you? What are your folks going to say about you? We have to think about those things, because 100 years from now, God willing, things will be a million times different. But it started here. It started, like Barbara said, I remember the bingo hall. I remember when the building next door was built. I remember being up here, stomp dancing, learning to shake shells, remember? When it was just that building. I remember those days. Well, unfortunately, I don't, but that's where I remember, is when that building was built. And look how we've come from there. So in 50 years, in 100 years, what are we going to look like? And if we can't start accountability, true accountability, and true ethics, now I'm up here preaching, what's going to happen? And are they going to say, oh, you're related to so-and-so, and are they going to say, oh, please? Or are they going to say, yeah, I'm proud that I'm related to that person? But we want you to be accountable, but at the same time, you have to make those directors accountable. Because they can't run and hire John Doe just because he's Billy Bob's husband or girlfriend or whatever. You've got to look at these departments and what these directors are doing, because they think they're God and they think they can hire whoever they want. And whether they're educated or not, whether they're educated in the business field or educated with the degree, and 9 times out of 10, they're not. They're Billy Joe's husband or Betty Sue's kid. And you're overlooking tribal members that are either business educated or degree educated. You're looking over those spouses, those caregivers that you say that's who you're looking to hire, but you don't. Because Betty Sue's son needs a job more than that caregiver, that spouse, that tribal member. And then that spouse, that tribal member, that caregiver teaches them how to do their job. And still gets the pay that they got, and this person gets $10 or $12 more. You're not benefiting the tribal member, you're benefiting Betty Sue's son, Billy Bob's daughter. So not only do we want accountability from you, we want accountability from those directors, and we want you to do your job that we elected you to do. And look at these directors. People come to you because stuff is wrong. They should be able to go to that director, but they can't. Because Betty Sue's son needs that job, but more than that tribal caregiver, more than that tribal spouse, more than that tribal member. That's the reality. That's the reality.
So thank you for those comments, Virginia. I
Try to behave. I have a
want to
best
assure
friend.
you it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
And see, that's the problem. We feel like it does.
Yeah.
We feel like it does. Now, that's totally uncalled for. Yeah, it is.
Let's
Weena, could you go ahead and continue with what you were telling me, please?
Where were
Is that
we?
all the departments? That's okay. Is that all the departments?
I think there was only one more, and it's really around facilities and maintenance. So our various maintenance crews, housing is in there. But it's basically to get very serious, considering the vast number of assets we have within the tribe, whether
Certainly.
it's physical buildings, roads, everything of that nature that requires constant maintenance. I think that was the only area that I left off, Barbara. But again, that position has been created. People have applied for it. No interviews have been conducted.
So then there's like 6 different executive directors, is that what you're going to call them?
Correct.
Of whatever department it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only positions we interviewed for were Executive Director of Tribal Member Services, as well as the BC Executive Secretary.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful idea, spreading the authority. But I also feel like oftentimes, and I'm going back 25 years, I don't agree that the business committee micromanages, because that's happened in the past. For 20 years it happened. But I do think that somehow you need to meet a happy medium. You need to know, you need to have some control over, or at least communication with the individuals, with the executive directors, because you're the ones that are going to get the heat, just like she says. So Callie mentioned that she didn't even know about it till yesterday. Well, how right is that the business committee is not aware of what's going on? Somehow, did you all know what was going on?
Some of them did.
So, well, that's neither here nor there with me. I just feel like that there needs to be a fix somehow. And you all know you're going to have to answer to the people. And so they're going to have to answer to you somehow. You're going to have to bridge that gap somehow to have some input, maybe that's a good word, over what goes on, whether you micromanage or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Got through saying, I became a member of this tribe, not nations, but tribe, August the 7th, 1945, the day they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And I'm always telling my children, this tribe is not the tribe that I grew up in. There was not all this bad talk about everybody. The people in charge, they showed respect to the tribal people. Everybody got along. And I'm always telling my children what you achieve now and what you receive from the tribe, because I told you, Mr. Bird, it was at the Oktoberfest or whatever, I don't remember, it's been a couple of years ago. I came up and talked to you, and I said I appreciate, on behalf of my family, of the benefits that we receive. And I think I also told you, I get so dadgum tired of people griping and complaining, well, this tribe gets this, this tribe gets that. It's not everything that has been achieved. It's been achieved over all these years. People have changed in this tribe so much. I always tell my children, what you receive from this tribe, it's not because of me. It's not so much as the people sitting up there, it's the ones who came and gone before us. What my children receive now is through my father. Because my father was the last hereditary chief. We have the news clipping out of New York Times. It was dated May the 28th, 1897. My father was 7 years old at that time. And it said the last hereditary chief of the Quapaw tribe that passed away in Oklahoma Territory at the tribal office of pneumonia, and that was Buffalo Calf. Thank you to the Buffalo family. And I tried to instill this in my children to appreciate what they receive, because I didn't want to go to the clinic because Jerry had a good job. And my mother said, Beverly, take advantage of it, because one of these days it would be no more. Because, you know, everything I have noticed in the past, when we were growing up, my father didn't ask the tribe for anything. We lived on his mine royalties and his land grazing fees. People back then, they didn't want money every time you turned around. They worked. I remember going from camp to camp visiting, and the biggest thing I remember was I graduated in May of 1963 from high school, and my father received a letter from the BIA in Muskogee. And it says, Mr. Buffalo, will you please come down on a such and such a date? We have somebody we want you to meet. Well, my daddy, instead of asking Lloyd or my sister Dorothy, I got to go. Well, we walk into the office, and the receptionist showed us into the room, and there was this tall, well-dressed gentleman stand up, and the director came over and said, Mr. Buffalo, I have someone from Washington who would like to meet you. And do you know who that was? That was the Secretary of the Interior, Stuart Udall. And he said, Mr. Buffalo, I have wanted to meet you so much because I've heard so much about you, and I'll never forget that. But Dad would tell stories like that, like eating at the White House, and how, you know, the butlers would come with their tails and the towel on their arm and the little silver tray and the finger bowls. And he said, we did not sit down at the table until the head of the table came in, and then we all sat down. We were not served until you was properly served from the left to the right. And that's the way we were raised as children. But I have never seen so much bickering and greed in this tribe before. And I will tell you one thing, and I think I've told Larry this, I've told my cousin here this, and I've told my children. This is not the same tribe that I grew up in. I said, what the problem is, we have lost the soul of our tribe. We do not know the true meaning of what a tribe should be. I have never heard so many people wanting money, money, money. Hey, get out and get a job and support yourself. We cannot depend on the tribe to pay for everything we have. And I do appreciate it. My granddaughter graduated just last night from Pitt State with honors. And I do thank the tribe for the help that she received at ATEC. But Cassie, on the meantime, she worked at the mental health clinic across the road from us in Riverton. But I bless her heart, she was so proud. She said, Grandma, I don't owe a penny on my tuition. And she was so proud she worked for $8 and something an hour, which most of these people wouldn't even work for. So I'm very proud of her because she's already been offered a teaching job. But I do think that we have a very good education department. And I had told my brother Lloyd, I said, the best thing that tribe can do is come in and, how do I put this? Well, I don't do Facebook, but my son does, and he gets really perturbed at the comments. I said, they need to teach these people how to communicate properly. It is really a disgrace. But I know we can't get back the old days, but we can kind of try to, you know? Quit expecting the tribe to support us in everything that we want to do. We have plenty of entities these people can go to work with, but they just don't want to.
Thank you. Julia?
I just want to thank you guys, first off, because I know that you guys have been hearing a lot of, you're supposed to do this. So thank you guys for taking care of us Quapaws. I appreciate it. I'm blessed and grateful to be Quapaw, and it hurts my feelings to hear the bickering. I think that the tribal members should be held to a certain standard, and I've said this once before. Long time ago, we couldn't have our kids around if they didn't know how to act. They would have to stay home. And I think that we need to hold our tribal members to a certain standard before they get the benefits. But once again, thank you so much for taking care of us Quapaws. Thank you for being patient with us, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Hey, while I have you at the podium, real quick, if nobody has any objections, would you mind closing us out in prayer?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm honored. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you so much for us being Quapaw, dear God, us for having the resources that we have to make the things possible that we're able to take care of our community, our citizens. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for our ways, dear God, our old ways, and thank you for the old folks that took care of us and prayed for us. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm so grateful for that. I'm thankful for us being Quapaw. I ask that you forgive me of my iniquities and my shortcomings. I ask that you be with my tribal members. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you be with our Indian country. Bless them. Be with them. Touch their minds and their hearts. Flesh us of any negativity, any bitterness that we feel, any untreated unfairness that we feel. Dear God, I ask that you be with our children, our generational children that have not been here or not coming yet, but from years and years, our great grandkids, dear God, bless them and be with them. Make sure that they get here healthy and safe and they have a good heart, a good mind, strong. Dear Heavenly Father, we're strong Quapaws. Dear God, I ask that you just keep us strong and keep that love in our hearts. And I just want to thank you so much for all that you provided us, dear God, for the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Oh, gonna gay. Motion to adjourn?
Make the motion to adjourn.
A motion. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.